We're fixing it.
I love this because I was here. I couldn't remember exactly what Lars had typed to set it all up when he was showing that to us this afternoon. But I was just saying I don't think you're gonna be able to answer that question without having the code in front of you. But you could. You did. That was
Well,
perfect.
I
You knew
pulled up the
exactly
code.
what he was talking about.
Do you see something?
We do. And so this is what. So this is both. This is your favorite and my favorite because this is actually a resource that you made.
Yeah, it's just a nice example what the resource type is able to do for us. Because
And also, everybody, this is brand new functionality, by the way. Just so cool.
yeah,
Go ahead, Lars.
it's Angular 19, which I haven't migrated to yet, but playing around with it is always fun. So what Alex told us is the resource function to make resources is a good start, but the real interesting type is the type of which the resource function is returning, the resource type. And to actually see what this resource type is, we will, because StackBits isn't good in navigating to the source, I will just do something so you can see what I mean. Implements resource. So now we should be able to just look what the resource is. There are a lot of squiggles because we haven't implemented any yet, but they will go away whenever we do something. So the resource has multiple properties. First, of course, the value which is represented by the resource. And this is a signal which can hold the resource value, or it can be undefined, and it will be undefined on initializing and maybe sometimes later when there's an error or something. And to know if we got a value or not, we have the status, and this is a signal similar to something like a form control status. And this resource status has different values. This is my kind of thing when I want to see what I'm dealing with. We have here the different statuses the resource can be in. It will be idle on initializing. When we provide a request, it will be loading, and sometime after that it might be resolved or has an error. And for now, let's ignore local and reloading because they are not that important in the first go. So this is the status we have inside the resource. The error is pretty clear, and this is what I told about in the first half of our talk. It could be a signal of any, but it's better to be a signal of unknown because we don't know what kind of error this is. And so we have to figure out what kind of error it is with something like ZOT or pattern matching or whatever we need. And is loading is just a signal for convenience to show some kind of spinner or progress bar inside the component where we want to display the resource. And the two functions has value and reload are some kind of helper to help with the types this resource may be in. I don't know if you all know about these type assertions, which are really handy if you want to get type safe code. So what this function is, it basically can just return this, or just a Boolean. Let's just return true. And when we have some variable, let's make a resolver string. when we want to access the value, then the value is, I have to be here, string or undefined. But when we access the hasValue function with the type assertions, then I hope this works. No, this works not. This is something what this type assertion should do is when this function returns true, then this object you are calling this function on is a resource. Of course it is. But the value property is the type of the value property is overwritten with a signal of t and not signal of t or undefined.
Do you need more type narrowing?
Maybe, but this is something we can't do here. No, we just ignore it. It's not that important. It may be important in the template, and maybe the Angular compiler can do something with that, but it's not that it should have been a little bit different if I had implemented this, but it's not.
So you're showing us what comes out of the box with the resource, but you were going to show us the resource that you created.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
we went off on a tangent.
yeah. I have here some API. Where is it? Yeah. Oh, I should use my screen and not the shared one. So here. This is some kind of API which streams items. This means it's not a one shot response, but it returns multiple response while it is going. And I mocked it with a timer, and sometimes I will throw an error. I do this all the time to test my code if it's error proof. And then it just returns an array of items, which you see here on the screen. And sometimes an error comes. So we want to use these paged items to aggregate in the resulting list. It just returns some items, and we want to display all the items. And it goes on forever until some error is occurring, or if I pause the thing. And this is just an error, a resource. So I have the component. Here's my function that creates the resource, and this items resource is basically a resource of the array of page items. And what I provide is an initial value. We start with an empty array, then a signal, which on this case, an observable, which fires the requests which we would need. And the loader function we know from the resource function, which translates the request into the response. And additionally, the aggregate function, which is something like the linked signal or an aggregate or the scan operator in an RxJS, which receives the new response and the currently available items and combine them together in the resulting array. And with this in place, which is such resource type which Angular provides, so all Angular developers know about it, everyone can use this resource inside the template. We have the loading indicator. We have we can compute some values if it's idle or not, because I will use it in the template. And even if there's an error and I just wrap it in a string so I can see the error, there can be fancier stuff to be made with the error. And yeah, so in the template, when we go up, it's like we just use a normal resource. We have the items and can display them. We know if we are loading or not and can display a spinner. If it's an error, we have the error and retry button, which will trigger the reload function inside the resource. And yeah, when we're idle, we can continue, and if not, we can stop the stream. So now if there are any questions, just interrupt me whenever you want.
This is a Stack Blitz. I think you posted the link for this in a
Yeah.
post in the group. I think this is something that probably a lot of people have not really had a chance to look at yet. You're at the front of the group on that one, Lars. But definitely this would be a good follow-up for us to come back and talk about this more, because I think this was kind of like the standalone components the first time everybody saw it. There weren't really a lot of questions. Same thing with the strictly typed forms. But once they went out and started smacking it around and playing with it, then they came back with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And we have
anytime you can write at the blog post or just send me a message. I will really happy to answer anything. So
this is really good for loading data from the back end.
Yeah, because my use case was I have some kind of DDD implementation, and whenever an entity gets changed in the back end, the change events will be sent over a WebSocket to the front end and to every front end which is interested in this special entity. And so I needed some mechanism to aggregate these events into the displayed view model. And the normal resource function is not really capable of that, because it only works on one response and then shut down the request. And even then, maybe it can lost something if you push too many requests into it and switch the stream. And so I invented this stream aggregate resource. And here at the top, these are the options. They are not so interesting, but here's the implementation of the stream aggregate resource. It implements the resource, and it's generic, so it can be used for any resource type. The only additional types I need is the type of request and the type of response I get from the API. And Ibrahim?
Oh, I think I actually found the... So from my understanding, like hashtag value, that's something that we can, if we use your stream aggregate resource, this is something that we can, how do you say, modify? Or because if it's, because I see the read-only tag, maybe it's not, but it's writable.
Yeah, there are two different things here, three different things. The property is read-only, so it can only be set once in the constructor. This is over here.
Yeah.
It's of a type writable signal, so the value inside the signal can be overridden. And the hash here is JavaScript for private properties. It's nearly the same as writing private, if I can type. But this is TypeScript, and even private properties are visible at runtime. So some smart developer may mess with them, and if you don't want that, you can use the hashtag. And these are real private JavaScript properties. They won't be visible at runtime. So if you dump this object into the console or so, you won't see these properties and you can't access them. And I used this a lot to encapsulate the data and to get the distinction between this is something the class is responsible for, and if you want to access the value, you can use the public property, which is only a signal and not a writable signal.
But so today, I did not actually grasp what's going on with the type, but then Lars actually used the type to, so he made his own resource, and he inherited this type, okay? And he was going, like, at this time, I realized, why did you say that? Maybe I'm still mistaken, but I realized that you can do your own resource API, not API, resource function, and then you use it. But then when he was showing us something regarding the value, so when he inherited it, and the value supposed to be a signal that holds the generic to you, otherwise undefined, when he narrowed down this into has value, so when he checked the has value, and then the has value, this is resource, and then he gave it the T, the generic, and the value signal T's resource. It's supposed to return true, but then when he check on has value, the has value still have the undefined, while it's supposed not to have undefined, because at this certain point, if it's returned true, that means it has a value of the generic, but not the undefined. But this is not what we saw. What we saw is actually it has undefined.
Which is that there's a resource API is experimental. It is very new, and also it has bugs, and this is one of them. I think we kind of got the design wrong a little bit, and this is something that happens when you do APIs as experimental and don't do extensive validation before releasing them, which is kind of intentional, right? We wanted to get it out there and see what people do with it in the wild. But I actually have a PR open right now that fixes this exact problem. So the way that the has value tried to narrow the type of value just didn't work. And it's because kind of we had this weirdness of the resource would be like resource of user, but then value would try to return user or undefined. So the undefined came from the type of value, and we are changing it to put the undefined in the type of resource. So when you call the resource function now, you will get a resource that includes the explicit undefined in its type. And then has value used to be this TypeScript shenanigans to try to narrow the type of the value property specifically. Now has value just says, oh yeah, remove undefined from the type of T. And this works nicely.
Nice.
So just our mistake. We're fixing it.
I love this because I was here. I couldn't remember exactly what Lars had typed to set it all up when he was showing that to us this afternoon. But I was just saying, I don't think you're going to be able to answer that question without having the code in front of you. But you could. You did. That was perfect.
Well, I pulled up
exactly
the code.
what he was talking about.
Yeah. The other commit in this PR, by the way, is preparing resource for something else. Is it this one? Yeah. Actually, no, I think it's in the original commit here. So one of the other reasons we want to make this change is resource today uses undefined as its default value, and you can't change that. And we actually are preparing to support default values in resource. So if you're fetching an array, you can say, I don't want undefined, I want the empty array as my kind of initial value. That's a kind of very common feature request we've started to get. So that's coming soon, and streaming resources are coming soon. Resources that can return multiple values. Yeah, I saw Lars was kind of working on something like that.
Yes, he's going to be so excited. And he's going to be so excited that Ali asked that question. Good job, Ali.
Perfect.
This is one of the things that I really like about the group is like the covering for each other. Like Andy had a question, Lars knew the answer, and then Dominic asked a question, and then Lars was like, oh, that Dominic guy, he's pretty cool. That was a good question. I wanted to know that. It's going really well. Good job, Alex.
Yeah. The other thing we're doing that Lars would be interested in, man,
I know he's going to be so bummed that he's not here.
Yeah, is actually making a proper public API to extend resource to create your own. So that's something we want to support people doing.
Yeah, he'll be the first one trying it out, if I know Lars.